There are moments in golf that don't feel loud at first. No trophy lifted, no final putt dropping, no explosion from the crowd. Just one decision, quiet on the surface. But if you really follow this game, if you really understand what pressure at the top looks like, then you know some choices say more than any victory ever could. And that's exactly why Scottie Scheffler's latest move has so many golf fans talking. Because this wasn't just about one tournament. It wasn't just about a schedule change. It felt bigger than that. It felt like a message. A message about where Scottie is mentally, what he values most right now, and maybe even what modern golf has become for the players carrying the heaviest expectations every single week. And the reason this hit fans so hard is simple. When a number one player in the world steps away from a huge event, people notice. They don't just ask what happened. They ask why. Is he protecting his game? Is he sending a signal? Is he preparing for something bigger? Or is this one of those moments that reveals who Scottie Scheffler really is when the pressure keeps closing in? Stay with me, because the deeper you look into this, the more interesting it gets. And if you truly love golf, if this game means something to you, and if you enjoy stories that go beyond the leaderboard, then subscribe and become part of this golf family. Because around here, we don't just watch golf. We feel every twist of it together. Scottie Scheffler shocked a lot of fans by deciding to skip the Truist Championship, one of the PGA Tour's signature events. And right away, the reaction split in two directions. Some people respected it instantly. Others couldn't believe it. Because in today's golf world, signature events are supposed to feel unavoidable. Big money, big names, big attention. And when the best player on the planet says, "Not this week," it instantly changes the conversation. At first, it sounds almost simple. Rest, recovery, major prep, smart scheduling. Honestly, all of that makes sense. Scottie has never seemed like the kind of player who chases noise. He doesn't move like someone trying to win headlines. He moves like someone trying to win the moments that matter most. And maybe that's exactly the point. But here's the part nobody talks about enough. Fans are used to seeing greatness prove itself by showing up everywhere. Old school golf culture loves the idea of the grinder. Play every big week. Face everybody. Let the season wear you down and survive it anyway. That's the romantic version of the sport. That's the version a lot of fans grew up loving. Scottie's decision challenged that. Instead of feeding the machine, he stepped outside of it. He made it clear, whether people liked it or not, that being the best player in the world doesn't mean saying yes to every spotlight. Sometimes it means saying no at exactly the moment everyone expects you to say yes. And this is where everything changed. Because once fans got past the initial shock, a deeper question started creeping in. What does this tell us about Scottie Scheffler right now? Not just as a golfer, as a competitor, as a person trying to stay sharp in a sport that never stops demanding more. This is a player who already knows what it's like to carry the weight of being number one. Every round gets judged differently. Every finish is magnified. A win is expected. A second-place finish somehow becomes a talking point. And when you live in that world long enough, the pressure doesn't just come from the course. It comes from the schedule, the cameras, the storylines, the constant pressure to be available, visible, and dominant all at once. That's exhausting, even for the strongest players. And Scottie, whether he meant to or not, reminded everyone that elite golf is not just about swing mechanics and scorecards. It's energy. It's timing. It's protecting your focus before the biggest battles. That's not weakness. That's discipline. Still, not everybody saw it that way. Some fans felt disappointed. And honestly, that reaction is fair too. When you buy into a huge golf week, you want the biggest names there. You want the feeling that the best are all in the same arena, with nowhere to hide. Scottie skipping that stage felt like losing a little piece of the drama before the first tee shot was even struck. That's why the story hit such a nerve. It sits right in the middle of two truths. 1. Golf fans deserve great fields and great moments. 2. Players are human beings, and even the best need to choose their spots wisely. Wait till you hear what happened next, because this is where the story becomes less about absence and more about identity. Not long after the shock of him skipping a signature event, the news also came that Scheffler would make his first ever appearance at the 3M Open later in the summer. And suddenly, the picture became even more interesting. Because now this wasn't just about him avoiding one stop. It was about him building his own path. On his terms. In his own rhythm. That matters. It tells fans this isn't some player drifting away from competition. This is a player deciding exactly where and when he wants to compete. There's a difference, a big one. He's not disappearing. He's choosing, and in a strange way, that may be more powerful than anything else. Scottie Scheffler doesn't feel controlled by the calendar. He doesn't feel trapped by expectation. He feels deliberate, calm, maybe even stubborn in the best possible way. The kind of stubborn that champions need. Because let's be honest, the very best athletes usually reach a point where they stop living by everybody else's script. They start listening to what gives them the best chance to be themselves when the lights are brightest. That's where Scottie seems to be now. Not reactive, not emotional, just very clear. But here's the twist. That kind of clarity can actually make fans even more emotional, not less. Why? Because golf fans care deeply. They don't just invest in outcomes. They invest in presence. They want to feel connected to the stars who define this era. And when a player like Scottie makes a move that says, I'm thinking long-term, not just about this 1 week, it can feel almost personal to the audience. Not because they're angry, but because they care. That's what makes this story so compelling. It's not a scandal. It's not chaos. It's something more real than that. It's the tension between what fans want and what greatness actually requires. And maybe that's why Scottie is such a fascinating figure in the first place. He doesn't always give the sport the kind of drama people expect. He's not theatrical. He's not trying to become a headline machine. But that's exactly why his decisions land so hard. Because when a quiet superstar does something unexpected, it echoes louder than if a naturally flashy player did the same thing. And this is where the emotional side of the story really kicks in. Think about what golf asks from its best players. Precision under pressure. Patience under noise. Consistency in a sport built to expose weakness. Then add the modern schedule, the travel, the expectations, the nonstop conversation around rankings, majors, legacy, and money. Somewhere in all of that, a player has to protect the part of himself that still loves the game. Maybe that's what Scottie is doing. Maybe skipping this event wasn't just strategy. Maybe it was balance. Maybe it was his way of making sure that when he does step into the next major moment, he brings more than just a technically sound golf swing. Maybe he brings a clear mind. Maybe he brings hunger. Maybe he brings the version of himself that can actually win. And if that's true, then this decision could look very different in hindsight. Because if he shows up fresh and dangerous in the next major, suddenly people won't call this shocking. They'll call it smart. They'll call it masterful. They'll say this was the moment Scottie showed he understands the bigger picture better than anyone else. But if it doesn't work, if the next big week doesn't go his way, then the criticism gets louder. That's the risk. And that's what makes this such a real sports story. There are no guarantees, only choices, and then consequences. That's why golf fans can't stop talking about it. Because deep down, we all know this wasn't just a skip start. It was a statement, a gamble, a glimpse into how the #1 player in the world manages pressure, ambition, and the impossible demand to always be everything, everywhere, all at once. And maybe the most surprising part of all is this. The decision actually made Scottie more interesting, not less. It pulled back the curtain just enough to remind us that greatness isn't only built by what players do in public. Sometimes it's built by what they refuse to do. Sometimes legacy is shaped in the weeks a player chooses not to play. That can be hard for fans to accept, but it's also what makes sports human. This is why stories like this matter. Because golf is bigger than swings and scoreboards. It's about judgment, timing, sacrifice, trusting your instincts when the whole world is waiting to judge the result after the fact. Scottie Scheffler made a choice that surprised people, maybe even frustrated some people, but it also reminded us that the best players in the world are still trying to figure out the same thing every competitor faces. When a push, when a pause, and what really matters most when everything is on the line. And that's why this story sticks with you. Not because it was loud, because it was meaningful. So now I want to ask you this. Do you think Scottie Scheffler made the right call? Or should the world #1 be playing every signature event he can? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear where you stand on this one. And if you love thoughtful golf stories like this, stay with the channel, because there's a lot more coming, and this game always gives us something worth